roll in.
Roll in.
Yes. And
Say hello to them.
you can say hello. I'm sure there's going to be maybe some people that you know.
Perhaps.
And you know, this little thing will pop up and you'll see questions or comments and things like that.
Oh, okay.
And I will ask everybody to basically hold their questions until the end.
Okay.
But if somebody like this, yes, thank you. And if somebody says something very rude or inappropriate,
do I get to tear them to shreds?
I would love it if you did. If you would like to, I mean,
do I get to verbally shred them?
I mean, that's one of the things that I love. But you can also ignore it.
Oh yeah, likely I will ignore them because I don't feed into that.
Yeah. And we have stuff to do. You know, we have important things to talk about.
Sure.
So hi, Bruce. Hello, everybody. This is our Monday Periscope, and I was just talking to Domina Franco about our usual Periscope protocols. Yeah. My name is Dynasty. And this is La Maison de Rouge, and I'm one half of it. Mistress Lucy Sweetkill is off prepping for her trip to San Francisco. Mm-hmm. And yes, it's actually in Costa Rica, but this guy and I have a inside joke about everything being Mexican.
Oh, okay. Sure.
So, welcome everybody. Thanks for tuning in. I'm here with a wonderful new guest. This is Domina Franco.
Hello, everybody. I'm excited for all these people who are joining us.
Yes. So tell us what you do and who you are and all those wonderful things as introductory.
That's a good long story. My name is Domina Franco, and I'm a sex educator and writer, consultant, and a kinky person. My pronouns are she, her. Trying to think what else. And yeah, I try to spread a sex positive message, and that's important to me. Yeah, that's why I'm in education. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And how did you get into this education part of sex and
of life,
and maybe why also?
Yeah, for sure. It actually started pretty early on. Mm-hmm. I've been doing this informally and now way more formally. Overall, it's been about 20 years. And I actually started learning about sex by being a phone sex operator. Mm-hmm. And that's really when I got my first formal understanding of kink and BDSM. And then throughout my life, it was just, it was an interest, but it was never something that I did. And then later on in life, and I was always studying sexuality because I was constantly really fascinated with it. Because it's a huge part of people's lives.
Yeah, and it's so fascinating and varied and diverse.
And it's so important to people's lives. I think people don't always understand how important it is. Yes. Because it can be such a source of pain, and it can also be such a source of joy for people. So informally, I was studying it pretty much most of my life. And then having taken the skills that I learned when I was a phone sex operator, then when the economy crashed and I was in college, I didn't really have a choice because I lost my vanilla day gig. And I realized that I had a very special set of skills and knowledge. And I also had spent a number of years as a semi-pro wrestler in my life. So, like I said, very specialized set of skills. And so I knew that that I had some qualities to be able to work as a dominatrix. And so I approached a dungeon. I used to live in New England, and I approached a dungeon, and pretty much I told the mistress of the house my background, and she hired me pretty much on the spot. Yeah. And then working as a dom for a very long time, and then eventually moving to New York after graduating college, and being surrounded by a lot of women friends who would constantly be asking me questions about, and men too, and non-binary folks, but like a lot of women asking me questions about sex, and a lot of them being like, you should do this for like a job. And it took years for me, but eventually I'm almost done with my master's in human sexuality.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
For
and
a job in educating people.
yeah, but I'm going to continue. I'm already doing what I should be doing. I just need the paper.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
the paper,
make it
it's
official.
stupid, you know, it's stupid, because I already know what I'm doing, you know.
And you've been doing it for so long, even before maybe you knew that this was what it was.
Yeah, I'm already guest lecturing at universities, and I'm guest lecturing at my own university next semester while I'm enrolled in university.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay.
That's my trajectory.
Yeah, and so do you find that when you were doing the phone sex operator stuff, and then you started doing the real-time sessions,
right,
that you were able to apply a lot of the knowledge that you learned from the phone sex?
Oh my God, yeah.
And did it deepen your understanding, or were you just kind of like,
oh no, it's so different. Like, being a 19-year-old who, I mean, I'll tell you, it was pretty hardcore. Like, they didn't just put us on the phone and were like, talk sexy. Like, they actually gave us books. They gave us like big training. Like, they made us train on like what terms meant and how things worked and what fetishes were, what was involved in certain fetishes.
Wow.
And we watched tons of porn and and we sat on other people's calls who were more experienced as operators. So that's sort of how you trained and learned. And but it's a totally different thing to go and do it on the phone. And in some ways, that's almost harder because you have to like literally paint the picture and keep someone interested and keep them hot and into it. And then being in in-person sessions, that had evolved deeply because by that time there had been so many years in between it, and I had started to realize that I was a kinky person.
Okay.
Whereas before, in the phone job, it was really just like, let me learn this stuff and make this money.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, actually,
okay,
I'm into this.
Yeah.
And then I started to deepen into what I actually was interested in myself, and then of course going into sessions and kind of making the choice to do sessions that actually also turned me on. I was lucky. I was privileged enough to be able to do that.
Yeah. So I wanted to remind all of you guys with really thoughtful questions, like the one that just popped up, to hold them until the end of our interview, because we do want to answer your questions, and we just might answer some of them here as we're talking, but just to kind of, write them down maybe if you can't remember them, and we'll definitely answer them toward the end. Thank you, Charles Wagner. All right,
For sure. I definitely want to make sure people get answers to things.
Yeah, as an educator, that's
it's what I love to do. Yes. That's what I want to do, is give people medically accurate, kind, factual and comprehensive answers.
And that was a really thoughtful question, so I definitely want to make sure that it gets answered.
Please repeat yourself at the end of this interview.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, so you're talking about the difference between talking about kinks and then actually embodying that experience.
Oh yeah.
And so, what was your first kinky experience?
For myself?
Yes, for yourself. Was it,
Ooh. Okay, well, I need a little clarification, because like kinky experience that I realized was kinky at the time or kinky experience that I realized later on, looking back, oh wow, that was the beginnings of the kinky stuff.
How about one of each?
Okay.
And they can be either sexual or non-sexual or both.
Okay. Well, so I'm going to start, like, because I'm a chronological, like, very ordered person, I'm going to start with the childhood one. So I grew up in a modest, nice little house in New Jersey, 2-story house. And there was a stairway up, and there was a banister that had, like, a big round, like, you know, finial at the bottom. Okay. And I was pretty much a hellion. I think that would probably be no surprise. It's no surprise to anyone who knows me. It will likely be no surprise to all of you by the end of this. So I figured out, because I think I might have seen Mary Poppins or something, that you could slide down a banister. And so I slid down the banister very cautiously at first, and my butt hit the round wooden finial, and I was like, whoa, right? And then I was like, wait, that was kind of fun.
It's a hard stop.
That was a hard stop, but I was like, that was fun. And so then I did it again, but faster.
Oh,
and then I did it again faster. And then I eventually got so good at it, I was kind of like cat reflex. Like I could run down the hallway and catch some air and then grab onto the banister and fly down the banister to get as much like trajectory as possible.
Into that impact at the end.
Into the impact, right into my crotch. So, because I also learned that it didn't feel good when it hit your tailbone.
Right.
But it felt good when it hit between your legs.
Yeah.
So,
so you had to do the extra
exactly.
thing.
Okay. So that was, so that was the childhood one, and I didn't know what I was doing at the time. My mother thought I was a maniac, which I kind of was a maniac, but she was just like, "What are you doing? Like, what is wrong with you?" And I was like, "So many things, you just don't even know." But so that was one of the childhood things that I didn't know at the time.
Right.
Later on, would figure that out. I also used to just beat the hell out of the boys in my neighborhood at all games, war games. All games. I would just like
physical and mental games.
Especially physical games. Like if it was the games of war where you have to like you shoot someone and then they have to go to the fire hydrant for 45 seconds.
Oh, okay.
I could murder them all and get them at the fire hydrant and win. And I'd be like, now we're done.
That's
like,
right.
Yeah.
You're like, next.
Next. And then, but to the more serious stuff of like actually evolving as a kinky person. I don't, what was my first?
Consciously, cognitively kinky experience.
Cognitively kinky. Here we go. When I was little baby Dom, I knew I was going to be a Dom. I mean, I knew that this is literally a kinky thing that you do, and you're going to get paid for it.
Wait,
but
when you were 19 or
no,
younger than that?
No, when I was older than that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and because the phone sex thing was happening when I was like 19, and doming was happening in my 30s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, so I remember, I knew how to go through the motions, like I knew the stuff, but I remember with one client actually realizing that I was truly turned on by something. Oh. And, it was, and I don't know if he doesn't know, he has no idea. But I knew
it was your first time
being like, whoa, like I knew that I liked, I was a sadist, so I liked kind of playfully torturing people, and maybe not so playfully sometimes. But this one man, I tied him to a table, and he had a blindfold on, and I had these gloves that were like fur, but then also had little claws.
Oh, I know about those.
I love these gloves.
Yes.
Oh, I love them. And so I was doing impact play with him, and playing with him in different ways and CBT and all this stuff. And then honestly, it was putting on the gloves because I realized I felt like Catwoman.
Oh yes,
I can see Catwoman. Catwoman had been a thing for me in my younger years. I always just was like, she's so powerful.
She is.
And I have
Are you
a
talking
thing
about
for
the Julie
catsuits.
Newmar Catwoman or the Michelle Pfeiffer Catwoman?
I'm talking about the Eartha Kitt.
Oh,
Catwoman.
the Eartha Kitt. Okay. Yes.
And also the Michelle Pfeiffer.
Okay.
Okay, because I love that people are asking which Batman. So
the TV show Batman.
I will say I also love Halle Berry's Catwoman. I do.
Yeah.
But
she didn't get enough credit as
she
Catwoman.
didn't. Yeah. I don't think she did. And I loved Michelle Pfeiffer's just because I thought the costume was really so fantastically 90s.
It was.
But oh no, I was talking Eartha Kitt Catwoman. Yeah.
She was definitely the most
Yeah. She was the most cat-like.
Saucy. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So what were you would? It was just the gloves. Just
it was
putting them on.
It was putting the gloves on, and then starting to play with him and his reaction to it. And I knew that I was getting reactions from other stuff, from impact play, but I think it was because I liked the gloves. And it's funny because impact play is literally one of my loves. It's one of my favorite things, using impact tools on people. But and sensory play and wax play. There's a lot of play. But
yeah.
Yeah.
So did you feel like maybe you embodied the Catwoman a little bit more when you put those gloves on? I
don't even think it was that I thought of myself as cat. I thought of myself as an animal.
Oh.
And that was cool because I think it's odd that simultaneously I could say that I felt like myself, but I also felt like an animal. And I was wearing head to toe black. I have practically black hair, and then I had these fur gloves on. I felt like I looked like a jaguar. So
okay.
Yeah.
It brought out a more primal instinct, and
I think I felt my real sadism that first time.
Interesting.
Yeah, I felt I like torturing people, but sadism where I really seriously wanted to tear him to pieces.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and more visceral.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. Interesting.
Yeah. So
it was just a simple act of putting
on those gloves. Yeah.
Okay. So at that point,
and the claws were so shiny.
Yeah.
I think that was it too. I love shiny things.
We love
exactly.
Shiny things.
Exactly. Yeah.
So from that point on, did you find that your own sexuality evolved deeper into this visceral primal reaction, or was it before that you started kind of getting more into I guess you're letting your own sexuality kind of unravel?
Yeah. My sexuality was always pretty healthy. No surprise. My sexuality was always pretty healthy, but it was funny because I really went to become a dom to make some money. I won't put some lovely fairy tale on it that I realized I was a dominant person, became a dominatrix. It was the reverse. And I became a dom because I was like, I need a job and I need to get through college. And then through just being with other folks in the community, and then starting to explore it on my own and starting to look at stuff when I would go through a session, oh wow, I used to just be stocking fetish, oh my god,
right.
And then I had a client who was amazing during stocking fetish session, and I was like, well, now I see the appeal,
right.
And I would unpack a lot of that after sessions. But in regards, and then I feel that was stoking the fire of my own let me look at myself, how much of this is me,
totally,
and I maybe just don't know it yet.
Yes.
And so that's been that's been a long journey, but it's it's interesting, and it's constantly evolving because sexuality, people's sexuality, it changes
oh yeah,
so much over the life cycle.
Yeah.
That I think there's still a lot of surprises ahead.
I know, that's the exciting thing is like our sexuality evolves, and some things, you know, we play out and then we're like, okay, we'll see next.
Yeah, like meh.
Yeah.
And then some things are like forever.
Forever. Yeah. So have there been
Yeah.
any surprising, I guess, changes in your own sexual journey?
Well, I think when I was younger, I thought I was heterosexual. I'm not. I am really not. Yeah, and it's so funny because I distinctly remember thinking girls were pretty, kissing girls, but it was just like, well, we're pretending for when we have boyfriends, this kind of thing. And then, of course, as I got older and, you know, wasn't so sheltered in my suburban life, and I actually started to meet, like, gender nonconforming folks and trans folks and gender fluid folks, that was so fascinating and wonderful to me, because then I was like, wow, there is so much more than what I thought there is. Like, because really I thought that it was just like men and women.
Right.
Like, and okay, some people like
some
this.
men are gay, and then
some people, exactly. And, well, I'm interested in kissing both men and women. And then I honestly, until undergrad, until I was like 17 or 18, I didn't even realize that there were transgender folks, you know. And then I was on the LGBT like group at school as a straight ally. Not straight. Secretly totally queer. On the Gay Straight Alliance. And so yeah, I was the straight ally. And met these two folks and who were on the alliance, and they just were cool people, and they weren't anybody I was like sexually attracted to, but it just was like, whoa, there's so much more than I know in the world. And that was like one of the first times where I was like, wow, there's other stuff going on in the world. And now I'm like, I'm all about like anybody who's like, I know what I'm attracted to. Like, I'm attracted to, like, you know, cool, interesting, smart people. Like, there's an interesting mix of what catches my attention.
Would you say that you are pansexual? Is that
I don't even know. Because, like, honestly, I just use the blanket term queer because I think it covers everything for me, and I don't have to define anything. Like, you know, I'm not going to say I'm demisexual, because there's some people that are just hot, and I'm like, cool, like, let's go for it, right? Like, I don't need y'all to be brainiacs, you know? Like, or
have an emotional connection.
Not necessary all the time. Actually, though, the older I get, the more important that gets for me. Yeah, for sure. And that's something I've noticed about myself, is that in my 20s and even into my 30s, I could just be like, cool, you're hot, let's do this. And more now, like, I actually genuinely want to like the person. Yeah.
I think that helps.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. It's nice to just, I like the word queer a lot. Yeah. Recently discovered one of my family members is queer, and I was like,
yes! It's not just you,
no,
right?
It isn't just me. I mean, literally everybody else is pretty much, you know, heteronormative, like, and chasing that status of like the car and the house and all the
marriage and the kids and all that.
And I'm just like, hey, everybody,
living my life.
I'm on the other side.
Living my life in New York. Not on that white picket fence track.
No. And you know, nothing wrong with white picket fences.
No, not at all.
If that's what makes you happy.
Also, there's like weird shit happening in the houses with
behind
those
the white
picket fences. Yeah. There's a lot of weird shit happening.
And there's probably even somebody in love with the white picket fence.
Totally. There absolutely are. I like know a number of those people. Yeah.
And I think that's fascinating too.
Yeah, because like, okay, whatever makes people happy, that's like the thing. That's one thing that I think is like, I get really upset about. And here I am going to be like, I'm upset with you, kink community.
Tell
like,
us. Admonish us, please.
Look now.
I like how you're like getting really close.
I don't like it when you vanilla shame people, right? Because whatever makes people happy and whatever makes people joyful and content and feeling safe and good in their sex life, whether they're asexual or heterosexual, homosexual, queer, whatever they identify as, if they're happy and they're not harming anybody and everything is consensual, then like, who the fuck cares, right? And so if somebody really loves missionary position, like, and that's kind of all they want to do, and their partner also loves that, like, then that's awesome.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some people maybe are just not at a time or a place in their lives to comfortably acknowledge that anything beyond vanilla is okay, and that's okay too, because that's where they're at.
Right, and they may find different things that they like, or they may just remain in what we would call a more vanilla space. But you know, I think the BDSM community or members of the BDSM community judging people for not being dom enough or not being sub enough or being vanilla, it's like so passe.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
it's
I
kind of
hate
hypocritical too. It's like, you know, maybe we were judged, but we don't need to
be doing
keep
that.
perpetuating that kind of attitude.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That is my lesson to you all. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. So yeah, it's like even if the couple isn't necessarily compatible in their kinks or whatever, it's important to at least accept that about each other.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe if you feel safe talking with your partner, then you talk with your partner about it. And sometimes there's some really beautiful, wonderful marriages where those things just don't align. And for some people, that need to have their kinkiness expressed is something they have to prioritize, and you know, somehow they grow apart from their spouse and that changes and they split from that person. And then sometimes they find other ways around it and they stay together for other reasons, you know, companionship or children or just religious beliefs or whatever is keeping them together.
Yeah, and it's important to have that conversation with your spouse so that the opportunity to, you know, renegotiate or whatever is at least presented.
Yeah.
So that there's, you know, a dialogue.
And it's not easy to talk about all that stuff, especially if you've never revealed like what your kinky stuff is, or if your partner in the past might have been like, wow, look at weird stuff, and then you're like, well, I'm definitely not telling them about myself. That's not telling them about that balloon fetish I have, you know, like, or I love to splosh with spaghetti, like, you're probably not saying that if you know, your partner's admonished that kind of thing before.
Yeah, and judgment goes both ways. That's, you know, that closes other people off to being open with you if you're going to be judgy too. Yeah. So, thank you again for another wonderful public service announcement.
I know, right? Oh my God.
So how do you see kinky and BDSM kind of like the trajectory into, I guess, being more acceptable or more opened up as a way of life?
Yeah, this one, this is such like a double-edged sword, you know?
I agree.
The book that shall not be mentioned. The franchise that shall not be mentioned.
In case you don't know what we're talking about, it's a trilogy of fan fiction based on Twilight, I believe, and we'll just leave it at that.
Leave it at that. Which gravely misrepresents BDSM in many, many ways. You know, I think BDSM has been in the, like, at least in the subcontext of the media world for a long time. And I think we see that in like anytime we see a film like Basic Instinct, or we see a film like Michelle, or we see a character like Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman. You know, like, you're not telling me there is not a generation of men and women who are all about that because of Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman. And it's been in fashion too, for like a forever, you know. But as it becomes more popular, you know, I don't see it taking anything away from the unique or special or beautiful nature of BDSM. The only thing I get concerned about is that people look at it only on a surface level, and then maybe they don't play safely. That's my biggest concern, is like, people don't play safely, or they also emotionally don't prep themselves for what this entails, you know. So either, you know, not being prepared, like knowing the ins and outs of how to do something you're planning on doing, like tying up your partner. Okay, there's easy and soft ways to start doing that, right? Or deciding you're going to get a paddle, right? Like, okay, great. That's, you know, but maybe don't start with a single tail whip. You know, just saying that. That's probably a good thing. Like, don't start with the really highly skilled tools at first.
It looks cool, everybody. It looks really cool to have a whip and everything, but it's not the easiest thing to use, and it's very painful. Like,
and you can whip yourself when you're trying to whip somebody else if you don't know what you're doing.
Even if you do know what you're doing.
I've done it myself. I whipped myself right down the neck once. But I kind of also liked it. So.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think, like, going off of what you said about the danger of it. Also, there's some people that, I guess, kind of learn about it, and then they decide that maybe abusive behavior is you know, like BDSM, right? Or that they're using BDSM as a crutch for their abusive behavior,
like a vehicle to do it.
Right. And I think that that's definitely something that this trilogy franchise kind of like moves in the direction of, and so that's another thing that people should be very conscious of, is that proper BDSM requires consent, and that is something that is given and can be reversed, as well as should be somewhat enthusiastic, not coerced.
Yeah, and constantly checked in on. Like, I think when I'm topping someone, I love checking in on them. Yeah. It's so hot.
Yeah,
like,
getting that feedback.
Oh my God. Yeah. And just like, I love checking in on them and seeing where they're at, because also I always try to gauge where they're at so I can go harder on them.
Yeah.
Essentially, like, I want to know where you're at so I can know where I can go.
Totally.
You know, but I think if people exploring BDSM would make them happy, I love that. I think, you know, there's a lot of books out there that will be like beginner guides that are well trusted. It's like, you know.
Do you have any recommendations for those?
I was just gonna throw a book recommendation out there already. Like,
get your pencil.
Yeah, exactly. There's the Forget the Rose, Give Me the Thorns.
Oh yeah.
That's like it's a little dated, and like the language is a little cheeseball, but like it also really shows you, like, oh wow, if you're going to use rope on somebody, be careful of these certain areas, because there's like nerves going down those places. Like, would I have known that at 19 when I was talking about tying people up? No, I would not. You know, so that book is a little dated, but it's pretty comprehensive, especially for beginners. And then also, I would say, like, go to classes. First of all, you might meet other hot, kinky people.
Yes.
Very likely.
Yes.
And you'll actually get real information from people that truly know how to do it. Like, maybe don't, you know, hey, tie yourselves up with silk scarves.
Yeah, see what it feels like.
Sure. But don't be getting into this, like, hardcore trying to do shibari when you don't know what you're doing, because it can be dangerous.
Baby steps.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, that's a really good tip.
Yeah.
So as far as maybe not specifically kink but sexuality, do you see people becoming more, like, the future becoming more open and accepting to alternative sexualities as well?
Well, I mean, I'm constantly unpacking that personally, because I'm always thinking about the fact that I kind of live in a very sex-positive, liberal bubble, you know?
We do.
You know, it's not going to be the same as, you know, somebody who lives in rural Wisconsin,
Right.
or, you know, somewhere else that's a little bit more conservative, right? But I always look at a lot of, like, younger folks, and I'm just like, wow, they're really, like, changing the landscape. And they're definitely changing the landscape. It's very different than when I grew up. You know, like, kids were maybe coming out, like, in college. So where now I feel like kids they're starting to see this representation. You know, they see it in media, they see it in books, and they're starting to realize, like, oh, I can say that I'm this, or I can say that I'm genderqueer, or and so I think that there's a lot of strides that are occurring in younger generations. But I also think it's, like, interesting because there's a lot of older people who are now finally able to say that they're trans and being able to transition if they want to, and if they can. So I do think that sexuality is becoming more accepted, but as an educator, like, every day, I'm fighting against the fact that, like, the government doesn't want people to get sex education, even though sex is something that, like, almost everybody does in some way or another, whether it's partnered sex, solo sex, right?
And
like,
you wouldn't be here if it weren't for sex.
Exactly.
None of you. Any of us.
You either.
Yeah, all
no,
of us.
none of us.
Yeah.
So, like, yeah, if somebody didn't bump uglies, I wouldn't be sitting here on Periscope talking
about
to you.
it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's definitely a disheartening notion that the government is so against
health education.
And sex education, and just sex information and safe sex information.
It's kind of disturbing. There was actually, and a lot of people thought it was funny, but, like, honestly, to me, this is so indicative of, like, the problem that occurs here. There was a couple that was quite a religious couple, and they were trying to get pregnant for years and years, and they couldn't figure out why it wasn't working. They were having anal sex the whole time because they didn't know. Wow. Yeah. They didn't know.
Wow.
That is a real news story.
Wow.
That occurred.
I mean, that really blows my mind, but it definitely is a testament to the, I guess, the sexual ignorance that so many people have. And
that would be even, like, not even thinking just about, like, systemically, like, the government doesn't want to give comprehensive sex education, which is crazy. But just think about that, but then also thinking about, you know, then say their culture, right? Like, say their religious background or their family background. Then there's all these filters where they're not getting the sex ed trickling down. Or then they get misinformation through porn or through, you know, sources that aren't right. Like, maybe some friends who also don't know about sex are trying to teach them about sex. And meanwhile, then they're just butt fucking waiting for a baby to happen. Like, you know, and it's just not happening, you know?
Wow.
Yeah, so that's a thing. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
You seem agog.
I'm just kind of like, I am in this bubble where, you know, people actually know so much about butt sex that they would probably even engage in butt sex just because they didn't want to get pregnant, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's just...
Well, and there's people that are doing that too.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. Good for you.
Yes.
Use lots of lube. That's all I say.
Go slow and don't pull it out too fast.
Exactly. Yeah, and just lots of lube. Lots and lots of lube. Yeah.
So, do you have any advice for the general as a sex educator, other than, you know, use lots of lube? Yeah. What would be your, I guess, like, biggest piece of advice for anything that you want to have to offer? Yes.
Yeah. I think regular STI testing is a really big one. Just knowing your status and making sure the people that you're with, that you ask them about theirs. I know that it's hard to have those conversations.
Yeah.
And that sort of talks about the overarching thing of like this inherent shame that we're like sort of marinated in as we grow up around shame. You know, I think, yeah, being able to talk about things, making sure you get tested, making sure that you ask your partners what they like, and then watching them. Like, if you can watch your partner masturbate, like, you can learn a lot about them just from that. Or being open, like trying things, because sure, maybe your sex life is great, and that's wonderful. Maybe it could be even better. Maybe you don't even know the things that you could like. So just being, enjoying yourself and trying new things. And
talking about it.
Yeah, and staying, and by the way, realize that even using condoms, there's no safe sex. There's safer sex. You can still get HPV with a condom.
Yes, you can.
You know, there's STIs you can get even using a condom.
And it's not the end of the world if you get an STI, because you can probably
most of the time.
Yeah, most of the time get some sort of treatment for it.
Yes, not to stigmatize, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's, that's important too, is that like you don't want to just, abstinence is not sex education.
No,
so,
it's not.
Yeah, so you
not even
want to be
remotely.
realistic about, where you're at in your human body.
Right. Yeah, and just getting that checked out, like, if you can do it 2 or 3 times a year, if you're a sexually active person, then that's really important. And it's not only important for you, it's important for you to be an ethical person in bed with other people and not risking their health as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you. So tell us a little bit about your virtues and vices. A little fun question.
Oh my God.
Bad virtues. Okay.
Oh my God.
Again, please save your questions until the very end of our interview. We definitely want to address them, but we're still talking.
Vices. Okay. I don't have a lot of vices, to be totally honest. I'm kind of oddly a good girl.
I'm kind of oddly perfect. Just kidding.
No, I'm so not. I mean, but like, I really, oh God, I don't know. I don't really drink very much. I don't really, I've done drugs, but I don't really do drugs, right? And, I know what my vices are. Really good leather goods. And I don't even mean BDSM stuff necessarily. I mean like purses and shoes and wallets. Oh my God.
That qualifies.
And I also love really fine jewelry.
Oh, yeah, nice.
I like
those are definitely
I like diamonds.
Yeah,
okay. So those are vices.
Sure.
I like really nice things that are very expensive.
Sure.
And I like Halo Top protein ice cream.
I need to try that.
I eat like a pint of it a day.
Oh. That's
it's
like
20 grams of protein.
Vice quantity there, okay?
Yeah, it's vice quantity. And then virtues, let's see, my virtues, what are my fucking virtues?
Well,
I'm kind.
Yeah, I think that you
when
care.
I'm not being a sadistic bitch. Like, then I'm kind. I do. I am very compassionate. I really want people to, I really want you all to have the most satisfying and like healthy and happy sex lives. That's deeply rooted in me. Yeah.
That's wonderful. That's a really wonderful virtue.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I hope that everybody does find a way to have that too.
Yeah, it might take you time.
Right.
Don't rush it. Whatever. You don't have to rush, but
Yeah, and you can always, I'm not really sure how to contact you, but you can maybe tell them how to receive an education or to, ask questions or something like that if they have it.
Yeah, you can always, I won't necessarily free labor answer your questions because I am a sex educator. I do get paid for this.
Oh, of course.
But you can certainly always follow my Instagram. It's Domina_Franco, so DOMINA _ and then Franco, FRANCO. So you can follow me on Instagram, because honestly, that's like, I feel like that's the best platform, because I'm like a very visual person. So that's my best platform. I should be getting on Twitter way more.
Do you have a like a one-on-one type of session set up?
I do, and actually, that's actually all over my website.
Okay. And your website is?
Which is dominafranco.com. So, yeah, I have under my services tab, it'll tell people like an hour-long session if you want to have a block session. There's also even like a quick question session where you can ask a quick question, and it's a much lower fee.
There you go. That's how you do it.
Yeah.
And remember, she is an educator.
Yes.
And not a sex worker.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And are there any projects or presentations or anything that you'd like to talk about real quick to share?
Oh my God, yes. Well, I am going to be at Sex Expo in Brooklyn the weekend of September 22nd. I'm actually going to be talking, sponsored by Magic Wand and UV. So I'm excited about that. We're going to talk about sex toys and how to make your genitals happy and make sure they stay clean and healthy.
Yes, very important to know.
Yes, for sure. And then I'm also going to be at Sex Ed A Go-Go, which is this amazing like variety show, plus sex education, burlesque dancing, and it's held, it'll be in September as well, and it's held at Otto's Shrunken Head in the Lower East Side.
That's a great name.
Yeah.
Okay. So lots of fun educational events.
In-person events. I do a lot of in-person events. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay. And then are those events listed on your website?
They're not. But you know what?
What about
It's too much to update. I'm so busy.
What about on your Instagram? Will you be promoting
It'll all be on my Instagram. You can always get it there.
All right.
Yeah.
Good. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Well, so I remember Charles Wagner had a very good question, and I'm sorry I don't remember it anymore, but if you're still on, Charles, please ask again. And then
something about gender, right?
Maybe.
I feel like it was something about gender.
I forgot too.
Oh, Charles!
No, Charles Wagner, we were counting on you.
You were so deep, and now you've forgotten? What is
such
that?
A good question. And then there was somebody else that asked a question a little bit later on, and so I reminded everybody about holding your questions. And so if you wanted to ask that question again, we would be happy to answer it, unless we've already answered it throughout the interview. And then anybody else.
I did see one question that said something about bad urges.
Oh, yes.
And I don't know, did university teach me anything? That's a great question. Yes, a few things. But honestly, the College of Life taught me a hell of a lot more, I'll be honest. University did teach me some things, for sure. I definitely am, actually I'm constantly learning how to decolonize the way I look at the world. Which, you know, hey, I'm a very privileged person. You know, I'm queer and I'm a woman, but I'm also white. So there's a lot of privilege in that. And so, yeah, university, getting my master's in human sexuality definitely has taught me a lot about that. It's also taught me a lot about the gender spectrum and people's experiences there. And this is great because Charles said,
how do you feel the fluidity of gender preferences has changed how we approach sex? Thank you, Youthful Explorer, pulling that out of way back then.
Thank you so much.
You guys are great.
Okay. I love this. So much teamwork.
I know.
Y'all are so cute. So that is a really fantastic question. I think it's wonderful because the truth is, right, is sex is this like amazing thing that can be anything you want it to be, right? And when we think about gender as a binary thing, which by the way it's not, it's definitely not.
No.
When we think about gender as only like male and female, which is incorrect,
and you have to choose,
right? Then that's so limiting, right? So when we really look at gender as it is, which is on a spectrum, that also creates, I think that really swirls up, first of all, our ideas that are based in patriarchy about gender roles and like what a man is supposed to do and what a woman is supposed to do. And I think because we get to break out of that binary of those gender roles because of this spectrum, it allows maybe cis masculine men to not have to fill these toxic masculine roles, right? And then it also allows women or femme or non-binary folks to be able to express themselves authentically instead of feeling like they have to be put into this like peg, this hole. So I think it's so beautiful. There's so much you can be doing, like that is so beyond the binary. Like, so forget the binary. The binary doesn't exist.
And there's so many toys and tools that support this non-binary approach also.
For sure.
Yeah, so I think that allowing yourself to have a full spectrum experience or to do something that you're not normally like identified as really allows for more I guess opportunities for pleasure to come into your life too.
Right, because if you're not stuck in this script of how you're supposed to be, then I love this. Okay, Frugi. Well, I hope you're learning something then.
College was definitely like such an experimental time when we were just like, this is our playground.
Right.
For sex.
Right. I mean, and there's no reason that life can't continue to be that way. I mean, Jesus, I hope you have more than one type of sex for the rest of your lives, you know? Yeah. Even if you're 85 right now, I hope in the next 10 to 15 years, whatever, before you kick the bucket, you do a lot more funky, freaky shit in your life.
And don't contain it just to, college experimentation.
Exactly.
It can be life experimentation.
I mean, my God, what's happening in retirement homes right now? They're getting it on retirement homes. We need to be talking to them about STIs because that is the highest rate of STI occurrence right now. Because they're just like, well, we can't get pregnant. And you're like, yeah.
True.
So I love it. Sex is across ages too, as well as across gender spectrum. So, don't let age stop you. Keep getting freaky,
And then there was that question about really strong urges. Do you recall what that was?
Vaguely, and if the person is still here, I'd love them to rephrase it because I don't want to, mix their question up. But I think they said something about, well, what do you do if you're having bad urges? Now, I would ask, what is a bad urge? I would ask for that to be defined. What does that mean? Because some people define a bad urge based off of a cultural programming or a religious programming that they grew up with, and not to bash religion because it's very important to a lot of people, their spirituality. But you might have been raised with messages that said that sex was dirty and that, you shouldn't be doing this or that. And, I think if what is considered a bad urge in this person's mind is something that isn't actually harmful to them and isn't harmful to somebody else and it's consensual, then maybe they should just play with it, and maybe it's not a bad urge. If it's not like screwing up your life, if it's not stopping you from paying the bills, if it's not stopping you from going to work, right? If it's not ruining your relationships, and if it's not causing you internal despair, then actually it's really not a problem.
Or that you're harming somebody else's bodily autonomy.
Right, exactly. That's what I mean by like the consent,
Totally.
So, if it's, if it's not something that's harming anybody and it's not harming you and you're keeping your shit together in life and it's something you enjoy, then, I say go for it, if what you mean by bad urges is something that's going to hurt somebody, especially if that's like an underage person or animals or, different things like that.
This is the person.
Oh.
Hard on out of nowhere.
Oh, that just happens, baby.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just get a hard-on out of nowhere. I don't know.
Totally.
I don't get hard-ons because I don't have that
Apparatus.
mechanism.
Yep.
But the body, by the way, the brain, and all of the chemical messengers that are in the amygdala and that, go through our body that produce, the clitoris also gets engorged. The penis gets engorged.
The nipples do too.
Exactly.
Yep.
The labia. I mean, this is the sexual response. And honestly, that's part of your, is it the parasympathetic nervous system where you actually can't control it? Sure, you could not be watching porn on a school bus. That might be a good way not to have a boner, right? But sometimes we just have sexy thoughts, or sometimes we see something that turns us on, and there's nothing dirty or wrong about that. And so, okay, you might get an erection, right? And if you do, there's nothing that's really terrible about that. You might be embarrassed, and I understand if you're embarrassed, right? But it's not a bad thing. It's your body responding.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that you have to go and stick it in something either.
Right.
That's not a directive that your body is pointing to. It's just a reaction.
It's a body
like
response.
A sneeze, right?
Right. It's like a sneeze, or it's like sweating. Yeah. Different things happen in the body. The body is like an amazing, miraculous machine. And sometimes, sometimes we get some oxytocin running around in our system, and we get some messages from our brain that just send signals down to either make a vagina vulva wet or to make a penis hard and erect. Yeah. It's really natural.
It's natural.
Yeah.
Someone asked, how do you know if you have HIV?
Oh, well, you would know that only if you got tested. And so
go get tested.
Go get tested for sure. I mean, and you know what too, just to make sure that we talk about, socioeconomic and financial barriers or physical barriers, like maybe you don't have a car or maybe you don't have the money to go to a doctor. There are lots of free clinics. You can Google free clinics in your area code. And, maybe you can have someone give you a ride to the clinic, right? Or maybe it's not so far away, but you can get free testing for sure. And so definitely get tested and get tested frequently.
Yeah, because if you are not sure if you have HIV, but you've somehow come in contact with it, and you're still sexually active, you could be spreading it to other people without you knowing or them knowing, and then it could just keep going and going, and that's not very ethical, and it's not good for anybody either.
Oh, one thing out as well is that you might have come in contact with HIV, and if you did, it also may not register on a test right away. So say you got, say last month, you think you might have gotten exposed to HIV. You can get a test, right, just to see, right? Get a test. It might be negative, right? It may show positive. If it shows negative, you still should get another test in about 3 to 6 months, because it can just hibernate and sit there for a little while, and it could read as negative on a test if you just were exposed. So definitely get your test again. And also if you just happen to, maybe you have a partner who has HIV, right? Or maybe you have some people in your life, and that might be something that you get exposed to. You might also want to look into PrEP. So PrEP is a medicine that you can take, and it helps block HIV from being able to enter your system and end up actually giving you the autoimmune response of AIDS.
Yeah, that's really good advice too.
Yeah, PrEP is badass medicine.
Yeah, and it's not as widely known.
I don't think it is. It's known really well in the queer and gay community, but hey, just because you're heterosexual doesn't mean that you're not going to be exposed to HIV, and you might as well take PrEP.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, always please use condoms.
Yes. Okay. Is there anything else that you would like to tell our wonderful audience that has been so charming and clever?
They have been.
And
They've been
patient
great.
and polite.
Yes. I just want the best for you all. Like, I hope you have wonderful, fantastic, bone-crushing orgasms. But also, wait a minute. Orgasm should not always be goal-oriented towards orgasm. Pleasure.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
And please feel free to follow me. I do a lot of stories on Instagram. I do often answer people's questions in stories because I think a lot of people have some of the similar questions. Mm-hmm. And I would love to have you follow me, and, well, at least if you're nice. If you're not, I'll just block you. Yeah.
So be nice.
Be nice, or I will block you.
Well, thank you guys for tuning in and for asking such thoughtful questions and being so attentive.
Yes,
my name is Dynasty, and I am one half of La Maison de Rouge. And we have these live broadcasts every Monday. Next week, I believe it will be me again, and maybe it's a surprise what I'll be talking about. So, if you would like to follow us on social media, it's La Maison du Rouge, LAMAISONDUROUGE, all across the board, Twitter, Instagram, Periscope, obviously. And we also have a website with lots of resources about alternative sexuality, BDSM, social activism in sex work, and wellness and health. So I will see you guys next Monday, and I hope you have a good night.
And I will not, but it was very enjoyable.
Thank you again for being on here and being
it was
so
fun.
Fantastic.
This was so fun. Thank you all.
Yay!
Yeah.
All right, bye.